that I am very grateful tonight that I couldn't think of a better person to talk with you, America, about this particular issue than, of course, Dr. Michael Jones, Professor Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor that is. He's with us tonight. We're so grateful for his presence and grateful for the opportunity to talk with you. But I want to show you first, before we go to Dr. Jones, the fact that there are a lot of Americans that are PO'd. They are fired up and ready to go, like we haven't seen since 1776.
Is going to do what we say tonight. And might I add, I was a U.S. Taxpayer Party of Michigan candidate at that time, sir. I observed stations where election workers were working on scanned ballots that had issues that needed to be manually corrected. I believe some of these workers were changing votes that had been cast for Donald Trump other than Republican candidates. I observed ballots with cursive writing notes at the top right-hand corner. I observed a lot of them. Let's say a count, maybe about 100 of them or more. I also observed these ballots did not have ballot codes on them. The one, you tear at the top, no ballot code numbers. At approximately 4:03 a.m., a poll worker announced 50 boxes of ballots coming in. Election workers loudly cheered, woo! Why? Did they know that they were for Biden? Was it a Biden dump? We don't know, huh? About 4:50 a.m., I witnessed a man spraying a chemical inside the ballot. It could have been air, but I also saw him put whiteout tape up inside of there, and he was walking around with this whiteout tape during the whole night. I have witnesses. If you need to call on them, their name is Cheryl Constantino, Linda Sawyer, Judy Jump, Debbie Swall, and Marlene Benser, including myself, Artesia Bomber. I can't get all into this because I probably got a few more seconds, but let me tell you, it was voter fraud at its finest, pure and calculated fraud. And I wouldn't be surprised if people up here was involved. But this young man right here, Senator McDaniel, Donald, I got to give you kudos. I see you're interested in this. And Senator Thies, I have to give you kudos because I see you're really paying attention. I wish Senator Lucido was here because I say he's paying attention. And now I think you will pay attention. And I plead the blood of Jesus over this fraud. And that everybody that was part of it and know about it will be convicted in their soul and their spirit. They won't sleep. They won't eat until they come right. Thank you, Jesus. Amen.
Thank you.
Thank you, Jesus. Thank you, Jesus. Amen. Listen, America's fired up. I haven't seen this many people this fired up in a long time. Trust me on that one, ladies and gentlemen. And so tonight, live from the hellish part of Texas, which is Dallas, and the heavenly part of Texas, which is Fort Worth, none other than the great master of constitutional knowledge, Dr. Michael Jones. Good evening, sir. It's a great privilege and honor to have you on the air tonight.
Praise Jesus.
Praise him. Thank you.
This is my belief. Could you imagine if everybody was black? Like, there would have never been Muslims, there would never be race problems, and there wouldn't be religious wars because every single male is a black Baptist pastor and half the females are. So think about if we were all black.
If we were all black, we would be in church from 6 in the morning until 6 at night every day
for one sermon. Yeah, that's just the prayer that opens the sermon. Yeah.
Oh, and everything would be a dance. There would be a dance for everything.
Can you imagine how great it would be? Because then we'd have to find problems with like the lighter skinned blacks. What we call the BBMs, the brown black men. Yeah. And then there's the double BMs, which are the black men, which, are really black. And those are probably no good either. So we'll just, the normal black NBMs is what we, would strive for. And that would be our new problem. We wouldn't, that and fighting sickle cell anemia instead of COVID.
There you go. Amazing.
Yes, but there is a bad side to this.
What's that?
In order to get all the black women plump enough for the black men to like, we might have a food shortage. Because if we had no skinny white chicks on diets constantly, there wouldn't be enough food to feed everybody.
That's true. That's very true.
You see, skinny white chicks have a role. Plus, there wouldn't be any redheads. And black men can't resist redheads.
That's right.
So
that's right.
Right. So there are two downsides to my plan to make everybody black.
Doctor, I gotta ask you here. You have been
Ask me
watching.
anything.
I can ask you anything. Ask you anything. Um,
AXU. Axu. I'm sorry, that's my tea. It's time for tea.
and yes, in that video, her last name is Obama. That's true. Her last name
Oh my
is
goodness.
Obama. There you go.
You see, and they say, can you never say anything nice about the Obamas? Right here.
See, right there,
I'm saying.
right there.
How
Okay.
nice.
And you're feeding your cats at this particular moment. Am I correct?
No, I'm getting tea.
Are you getting tea?
Getting
Okay.
tea. Yes. 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 And the secret ingredient, sugar in the raw, which, you might just open up and pour straight down the gullet, but I put just a little in my tea
Oh, you put just a little in.
to,
Just a teeny
just a
tiny
little,
amount.
a smidge. Yeah. Well, I tell you, I made a mistake, a big one,
And what was
and I
that?
don't often do that, but I ought to come out and admit it. I donated $30 to Trump. I didn't really have it, but I donated it to the recount,
Mm-hmm.
and they're going to send me a T-shirt and everything. But the second I hit the send button, I've started getting like 2 trillion texts a day from Trump wanting money.
Exactly.
At
If you don't
Yeah,
give $25 right now, we're going to lose this ballot recount. We're all going to
and
die.
I feel responsible. Yes, because I haven't done it. I've only given them 30, and every 5 minutes I have not donated $25.
Yeah.
And so therefore, if this fails, you guys know it's on me.
Yeah, it's your fault. And I want you to
Yep.
know that I'm beginning to get, I have been receiving that information from the Democrats. The Biden people sent me a statement earlier this week stating that I was one of the most proud Democrats that they found in the District of Columbia and really need my support. So,
Hey, you should make a copy of that the next time you're told you're not black enough or something, and show them
there you go. You see?
proof.
You see?
Put it
I,
on a frame behind you, so that every show you do, it's sitting there.
I got proof. I'm
Poof.
black.
Yeah,
I'm black.
poof.
I got poof. POOF. Lots of poof.
Jeff Mitchell from the EDL League. I was on there today. Dave had technical problems and couldn't do it, so I
Mm-hmm.
filled in.
Yes.
And and he confuses you and Ken. Ken and you, Brett. No, wait a minute. Now I'm confused. Jeff confuses you and Dave, and so I told him the way. I mean, I'm sorry. I'll get this right. He
Okay.
confuses you and me. Yes, and I told him the way to tell us apart was that you wear the black cowboy hat and I wear the white cowboy hat.
That's it.
See, it's simple for Jeff to tell. Even a Brit could do it. Okay.
Even a Brit could do it.
Yes. Yes,
Professor,
sir.
we have been told tonight, sir, that by the former National Security Advisor to the President of the United States of America,
Uh-huh.
that Donald Trump shouldn't walk out of the White House
Oh, he
until
should be
this.
carried on a platform, above our shoulders.
That's right. I think you would volunteer to do that too.
Yeah, sure. Yes. And then, rose petals thrown before his feet, as he is carried out. Yeah,
we
that's just what kind of talk. That's a guy looking for a job on CNN. That's all that is. Discount it and move on.
really.
He's auditioning for CNN. Yeah. I mean, you make comments like that. What are you going to do? Yeah.
Well, I took it so very seriously that I was doing research in preparation to discuss this very sober matter because there
Hmm.
is a legal context to it all.
Wait, you're
And
sober? Oh, wait, I forgot. You're Baptist and you're by yourself. You probably are. Yes. Yeah.
Thank God I'm not Pentecostal. You would have known.
right? You know, being Anglican, I immediately looked over at my cooler to see if you'd gotten into it. Yeah.
But martial law, there are two theories about martial law. Here's the first theory.
Okay.
Okay, because people expect me to be so sincere and sacred with information and news now because they can't depend upon Fox anymore.
Right.
The first of the theories is, and it stems from the Petition of Right from 1628, it provides that the common law knows no such thing as martial law. That is to say, martial law is not established by official authority of any sort, but arises from the nature of things, being the law of paramount necessity, leaving the civil courts to be the final judges of necessity. So anybody and everybody could be in martial law. You have martial law, and you have martial law, and you have martial law. Here's the second theory.
Wait, what
Martial
was the year that said? The year of
1628.
1620?
1628.
Huh.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
pretty
Go ahead.
recent. Pretty recent. You know,
Yeah.
when I was
Well, it was. I guess I was a Guyzode at that time, but it's 400 years after the Magna Carta. So yeah.
yeah. See, but I was also the dream of a Planned Parenthood clinic right around that time period. So
Yes. As my dad says, son, it's not too late for an abortion.
it's never too late. If you're
It's not.
Governor Cuomo, it is never too late. Here's the second theory. Martial law, and you wouldn't find this on any other conservative network or even liberal network. They're not talking about this. This is why we are so highbrow on this particular network. We really are. Martial law can be validly and constitutionally established by supreme political authority in wartime. In the early years of the Supreme Court, the American judiciary embraced the latter theory as it held in Luther versus Borton that state declarations of martial law were conclusive and therefore not subject to judicial review. So those are the two theories. One, they require the courts. Two, they don't require the courts. Okay? Here's something else that you need to know about martial law. This was determined by the courts. Where peace exists, the laws of peace must prevail. What we do maintain is that when the nation is involved in war and some portions of the country are invaded and all are exposed to invasion, it is within the power of Congress to determine in what states or districts such great and imminent public danger exists as justifies the authorization of military tribunals for the trial of crimes and offenses against the discipline or security of the army or against the public safety. In short, only Congress can authorize the substitution of military tribunals for civil tribunals for the trial of offenses, and Congress can do only in wartime. So, one is the courts, two is not the courts, three is Congress. But here's a ringy dingy. Fourth, in 1965, the president used federal troops and federalized local guardsmen to protect participants in a civil rights march. The president justified his action on the ground that there was a substantial likelihood of domestic violence because state authorities were refusing to protect the marchers. You also know that this is not the first time, but one of the 5 times that martial law was called in this particular nation, including the Civil War and the Whiskey Rebellion. And I don't know
Yes.
why people were against the whiskey, that they rebelled so much. But
Yeah. Well, it was called the Whiskey Rebellion, but it wasn't because we had too much whiskey or not enough. It was because of taxes already and not paying war debts and not paying the military. And there was a lot of problems. Washington used troops to put it down, declared
yes,
a martial law. Uh, some people hail that. I'm not happy with that idea, but uh, I think that was more of a state issue. But uh, I I believe that the ability to have martial law comes, we have God's law,
Yes.
and then we have nature's law.
Mm-hmm.
We also have common law. And common law are those practices, beliefs, and rules that are established over years to enable us to live with one another and to have trade and commerce, and survive, basically to make society. And if society itself agrees with the concept that the government that is elected by the people feels a necessity for martial law for an emergency, then I believe martial law can be, in fact, done. For instance, the riots that we have in some of these Northwest states that are going on, they could have declared martial law, shut it down, thrown these guys in jail, and that would have been the end of it, just like George Washington did. And they could have used troops, because I don't believe that violates posse comitatus. Now, the view that it's Congress, I think that it should be an executive decision with the support of the legislature. And so governors in the states and presidents, the president at large, can cry for martial law, but I believe it has to be backed up by support from the legislative branches in the state and or in the United States Congress. And because it's not a light thing. Remember, Lincoln established martial law, got rid of habeas corpus, and did a whole lot of unconstitutional things. And his basic response to people was, well, we'll let the historians decide if I'm right or wrong.
Because he eradicated the press virtually in this country.
Oh, yes. He threw a lot of them in jail because of what they were saying, and because they were anti-war, but they're really just anti-him. My gosh, is my hair that bad?
You look great.
And,
no, Mary Brockman says you look great.
She always does. I could come in looking like a corpse, and Mary would go, "Mike looks good."
Well, you need someone at the funeral saying that. You do.
I do. I plan on being there too. By the way,
I plan on being late.
Yes,
I'm black.
You'll be at Popeyes.
Or churches. I'll be at churches.
Right. See, at your funeral, we're all going to get those little umbrellas and a band, and we're going to each have a bucket of Popeyes, and we're going to go down the street and toss chicken legs to people.
We're going to be dancing all over the place. There you
that's
go.
Right. That New Orleans, that's how I want to go, dudes. I don't want people crying, or being sad I'm gone. Say, hey, what a hell of a life, man. He went out with a bang. He burned every candle. He spent every dime. And there's a bucket of brass around his feet. That guy is all right. And then I want you to get out the single malt whiskey. Don't ruin my legacy with these blended malts. Get a single malt whiskey and a cigar and say bye to me. Pour a little on my grave. That's good for me.
No, because why would we pour out when we know it's not going to any good use? You know that you go to AA meetings every day. Why would we even pour out?
Hey, you told me you would never tell anybody I go to Asshole Anonymous. That's a serious breach of etiquette.
That's a serious breach. There we go. The good doctor is in this evening, and Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, will be joining the TECN TV network very shortly. We'll be putting all that together with him.
All right, hey, is that a joke because I'm in a wheelchair and I'm not 6'2" anymore?
Yeah, no, you're still 6'2".
No.
Yeah,
but I'm like 4 feet. I'm like a hobbit now that I'm in my wheelchair.
Well, actually, you're my height. Yeah. We can see eye to eye now.
Right. I know that's who you identify with when you watch Lord of the Rings. So you go, dude, it's Sam, the fat hobbit says, my precious. Hey, have you noticed that the moon is yellow tonight?
No, I didn't.
Yes, the Chinese landed on it. What? Is that racist?
I believe that Xi Jinping has probably claimed it for the Chinese Communist Republic.
Right. Well, you've seen the press release, right? They they said that it really is made out of cheese, and they're going to give government cheese to everybody now.
You get cheese, and you get cheese.
Chinese cheese, please. Chinese cheese.
Oh my goodness. Uh, I gotta ask you here. Have you been watching any of the um, hearings, Arizona, Michigan, Pennsylvania, regarding this
I
election
wished
fraud?
I had, but I have not. I haven't been on Newsmax in a while, and I'm done with Fox.
Yeah.
They're no better than CNN anymore, so I don't pay any attention to them. And I haven't really figured out how to navigate around Newsmax yet to find those things.
Well, you know,
But
TECN TV also plays those things. Just wanna,
does it?
yeah, we do that.
Oh, wow. See, I thought TECN was something for fleas, but it's evidently not.
It's not. We moved up. We're down to ticks and fleas now. Ticks
Ticks
and
and
fleas.
fleas. Yeah. I notice when I play it, all my roaches run out. So, like, yes.
Oh, we're working hard to gather up the rodents called the swamp creatures of Washington
Oh,
D.C.
good
Um,
Lord. Wait, well, tell me about these. These are they the ones in front of the legislatures, like
yes,
Pennsylvania?
yes.
Yes, I think that is the only way we'll do this. And Dick Morris himself, right the day after the election, maybe 2 days after, Dick Morris said, "You're not going to win this if you don't hit the state legislatures and convince them."
Hmm.
And you know, I said, Bob Barr is a hero of mine, and I've always believed him, in him and what he does and stands for. And I'm confused right now about Bob Barr and
Yeah,
what's going on with his statements about the election. I believe it's probably strict legalese that he himself has not found anything. While I know the DOJ has looked at a few Dominion machines and a few of the affidavits from eyewitnesses,
hmm,
they say there's no widespread evidence of widespread fraud across the country. Now, what does that really mean? Well, like Bill Clinton uh, said, depends on what is.
yes.
So this could be Barr wrangling behind legalese. It could be that he's at the mercy of the Department of Justice, which hates Trump.
Hmm.
I don't think Barr would hate Trump and is a never Trumper, but I don't know that for a fact.
Hmm.
Uh, he seems to be on Trump's side, and he seemed, but then so did Graham after the election, right?
Yeah. So did Sessions.
And Sessions, Pete Sessions too, yes. And Lindsey Graham, those guys, whatever the flag flies, there's no real fear of them. They get into the wind, they sniff it out, and then they take the wrong side. So
Hmm.
whatever's blowing in the wind is the way they'll go.
You know, I
But
would have to. I broached that last night with Dr. Jane Ruby,
mm,
and we were on the air together with you and Jeff Mitchell and Dave Milner on the English Defense League just a few weeks ago. And I
yes,
broached that with her last night that it may appear that he's just saying you can't trust the DOJ and the FBI. You're going to have to pull this out through Scotus.
DIA, yeah, the Defense Investigative Agency. I think the
Yeah.
DIA is the Kraken, and I think General Flynn's pardon was the shot heard around the world. That look at the things that Flynn's already saying and coming out, and they took his muzzle off because he was under a court order that he couldn't talk, and with this pardon now, he's able to speak again.
Hmm.
And I think between him and Sidney Powell, working with the DIA, which was set up 3 years ago, or almost 3 years ago, a little over 3 years ago, after the last election, 2016,
Yeah.
I think Trump realized you couldn't trust the FBI because they spied on him, Department of Justice, and he couldn't trust the CIA or the State Department because they were all anti-Trumpers. And so uh, I think that the DIA has been heavily involved in this. I can't prove it, but just
Yeah.
research and my brother has and I have both been doing our due diligence on this and on the Kraken, if you will.
Hmm.
And I think that things are going to come, and people will be in handcuffs. But I can't tell you that it will be done before January, whatever, to make sure that Trump remains president.
Yeah.
Especially when the campaign leaks today that Trump is considering 2024 if he doesn't win. And to let everybody know, he's keeping his placeholder position as number one candidate for the next elections for president. But, geez, Ken, we live in a fast food society. If you
Yeah.
go through Taco Bell, and you probably know what I'm talking about,
Yeah.
and it takes you more than 3 minutes, you get pissed.
Yeah.
You're like, where's my food, dude? And so we want an election to be the same way. Now, mind you, most of this country was able to do that
Yes.
and get it done that night. But ironically, just those that were counties, not states. I don't want to blame states, because Georgia and Pennsylvania are beautiful states, but a few blue counties are what's held up every election result from all the contested states. And you notice they were only in the contested states. They had nothing to do with the blue belt or blue wall, whatever they call it.
Mm-hmm.
And they didn't go after those. They went and they didn't campaign. They went
Yeah.
after the places they knew they were in control of that they could manipulate. And so there's no doubt in my mind fraud exists, rampantly, but can it get proven in a court of law? And then would the court of law overchange the election results and restore it? That's important. And restore it to the proper winner.
Yeah.
Because if this is done right and legal votes are counted, I believe Trump wins in a landslide. But how do you
Exactly.
prove these things, without the physical evidence? And you can bet your bottom dollar that physical evidence is disappearing by the minute.
Exactly. We had Mark Fitcham on, who's the representative from the legislative district 11 out in Tucson area. Forgive me, Arizona, Tucson area, and
Yeah, that's
I,
in Arizona.
yeah, it's just an extension of Arizona. It really
Right.
is.
What's the difference?
What's
They
the difference?
all look.
If you all look at the Texas Republic when it first came in, all the land that was Texas,
It
never
was part
mind.
of us. Yeah, all the way to Idaho, dude.
All the way, all the
And
way.
listen, here's an invitation. If you'd like to come back to Texas and leave this Mickey Mouse country, then do so, and we'll build a wall. We
Trust me,
invite
it's a,
Trump down here and have him build a wall.
trust me,
Yeah.
Mrs. Biggs and I are really thinking about it. I would love to go to Texas, um,
Hmm.
but in
I know what's holding you back, and I understand, but you're always welcome. Yeah. Yeah. And I could always use someone to cook me meals and bring them to me and things. So
oh, well, thank you, thank you. You
yes,
must have heard from my cat Jacob, who loves his gourmet meals every hour on the hour. Uh, so
yes. I
he's
got a text from Bailey tonight,
all
and
right.
and
Bless you.
it said her dogs are Piper and Scout, and the text
Yes.
said, "This is Piper, not Bailey. We have grown opposable thumbs and have taken over the apartment. And we are eating nothing now but soft foods. And when we're done eating, we're going to take over the world." And my cats responded, "It's time for a cat nap. And but when we're done with our beauty sleep, we will arise and overthrow the evil devil dogs." And so,
you know, with cats, and I'm going to go back to my questioning, but with cats, it's an amazing thing. They sleep like 15 hours out of the day.
well, no, and then do nothing the rest. They sit there and stare at you and knock stuff off the countertops.
They're malicious. They really are. They're
Mm,
malevolent creatures.
they're very wicked.
They are, and they will actually stare at you while they're doing it and say, so what you gonna
What
do?
are you going to do? It's true that dogs have masters. Get out of that bathroom. You both better get out of there. I'll murder you. They just went in the bathroom and stole crap out of the cat box again. No, don't even come near me. Go away. Go away. You're eating cat crap. Yeah. No. 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 I'm so sorry.
But I
Oh,
want to share. I want to be
yeah.
with you. I want to share with you.
I was going to say dogs have masters, but evidently that's not true. And, dogs have masters and cats have managers or assistants, rather. Yes.
I'm an
But,
assistant. Uh, I
yes.
I'm working my way up from sous chef to chef. I'm working my
Oh,
way
I
up.
get it. It's the quote is dogs have masters, cats have staff. Yeah.
Darn Skippy, darn Skippy. Um, but in terms of the military at this particular juncture,
Yes,
um,
sir.
we're hearing that the military, and I just want to announce to everybody that Facebook is working on depublishing the Exceptional Conservative Show. I mean, the Exceptional Conservative Network, American Conservative Nation News, and also TECN TV off its pages because we reported that 5 soldiers were killed in Germany recovering the server. In addition to that, it had been affirmed by Lieutenant General Flynn. It had been affirmed by Sidney Powell, and it had been affirmed by a guest that we had on our show uh, this week, Monday, Paul Vallely, uh, former Major General. So we're getting all these affirmations, but Facebook has throttled us at this particular juncture. So don't think Facebook is our friend.
No.
Is there some way that you could create a military tribunal by the end of this month and by the 6th of January have prosecuted or because Arizona's governor Doug Ducey just got a lawyer today. Is it possible for tribunals to be created to literally rank out the treason that has taken place with the elections if provable?
Okay. As you know, commander in chief of the army, the military, I believe that Trump could order the judge advocate generals to conduct a trial, and we could get it done because JAG trials don't go on for weeks and weeks. They go on for a couple of days, and that's it.
Mm-hmm.
And the big ones, they only last a few days. They do not last very long.
Yeah.
The problem here is the word treason. It has been laughed at for so long as, we call them treasonous and they laugh at us, oh, what an extremist, says what I'm doing is a traitor to the country. Well, it is. But, and by definition, it's treason.
Yeah, it is.
Fraud in an election is treason, and it's punishable by being hung or shot. Uh, and you'll make no mistake. Uh, Look at what Trump just did 3 or 4 days ago. He approved that punishments. Excuse me. Come on, Roxanne, move your big butt. Punishment could be done by um, execution by rifle or by the electric chair again, and gas. So you have your choice. And I'm hoping some people will choose something besides, going out peacefully with gas. I want them to, jerk and burn and fry and hurt. That even firing squads are too quick. Right?
Mm-hmm.
For some of the things some of these people did. Like if you shoot a cop in the face and he dies, then you should be treated like this, and you shouldn't have 10 years of
Yeah.
time on this planet to go through appeals. It should be a very quick thing, very thorough, but we should really get it right. I mean, there can't be any mistakes, or because death row is full of people that shouldn't be there.
Yeah.
And I say full. That's probably the wrong word, but there are
There,
people in death row that don't belong there, and
well,
some in jail too, prisons and
yeah,
whatnot.
because they always state if you have just one person on death row that shouldn't be there, then nobody should be on death row. I don't know about
Yeah.
that one, but
Well,
that's a stretch.
in America, we've always thought that in order to save one innocent life, we could let 100 guilty go free. But China's got it the other way around. We'll kill 100 to find that one bastard, and no problem. But life's cheap over there, not so much in America.
Exactly.
And I'm getting older, and I'm starting to change. As I'm very libertarian when it
Mm-hmm.
comes to things like this.
Mm-hmm.
Um, if we had the space and the ability, I'd say just wall them off from the world. Put them in a place where there's no windows, no music, no TV, no luxuries, and leave their butts in a room. No
Yeah,
books, nothing,
there you
you
go.
know, and let them go crazy, uh,
Exactly.
you know, and
So, so
yeah,
what many Americans tonight watching this on our YouTube channel for TECN TV and as well the Exceptional Conservative show and on our BitChute channel for TECN TV, what they want to know is are the things that they're hearing that seep out from Newsmax and TECN TV and OANN and all these other places, is it believable or is it as far fetched as CNN and other mainstream media like Fox say it is? That if you have a preponderance of evidence that shows that treason took place, as in Fulton County, where they have video of ballots being shipped in by the suitcase load so that people could count them illegally. If that's the case, can the President of the United States remain in office and fight this charge all the way through to the very end?
well, I think he can. I think he should. Uh, Everything that's being done by the administration is constitutionally provided for.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, right there, you just got to read the Constitution. It says that these things can be contested, and that's what our court system is for. You know, and they're not to decide. Courts are not to decide elections, but they are to decide, if it comes to it, whether an election was legal or not. And many of us believe this to be an illegal election. Uh, while I'm worried about the path we're taking and it not being successful in time or with enough evidence that it makes the entire country believe it, there's a problem. Uh, 74, 75 million people voted for Trump, and probably 70 million voted for Biden.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, Maybe. Certainly not the 80 million or whatever he's
Yeah.
got, but that I think is a fraud zone. But what we have to do, we have to make it where both sides believe that the election was done fairly. And at this point, I don't think that's possible because 74 million of us think that treason has occurred and
Yep.
this election was nothing but a fraud. If the courts reconcile this and restore the proper results from the polls by eliminating illegal votes, and mind you, I'm not saying overthrow the election or overturn it, which is being used by the media,
Mm-hmm.
because that word offends people. If you
Mm-hmm.
say overturn it, well, then, well, wait a minute. How can the court just go and overturn an election? So uh, all Democrats and a lot of Republicans hear that language and they rebuke to it. They don't like it.
Mm-hmm.
But if it's restored, then you've got 70 million Americans that are going to think, because of the way the news media works, that they won fair and square, whether that was by cheating or not, and that the election
Yep.
was theirs, and that it has been overturned by a Republican held court, uh, especially because Trump just nominated the ninth Supreme Court justice.
Yeah.
And if that's so, then you never know what's going to happen with the populace. The rioting and all that crap, of course,
Mm-hmm.
but this may give them enough resolve in the House of Representatives to begin the efforts to increase the size of the court, and the Senate may go along with it because there's some senators that really aren't conservative; they're just rhinos
Yeah.
that won this race, and they may go along with it just so that they look good and get invited to the right parties, and whatnot,
Yeah.
and because they don't really have anything they stand on, so they're not worried about their conscience or their ideals of what government should be, like say the Constitution.
Well,
And so, since they don't worry about that, they may switch over in the Senate and House could, and you do those things that that we're afraid of anyway with the Biden administration.
exactly. But what I'm hearing from some of the state leaders uh, is that Pennsylvania, this is what I'm hearing, Pennsylvania will
Mhm.
assemble and elect its own electors for the state, which basically means they're virtually throwing out the election. And
Well, let's not get the horses in front of the cart.
yeah.
Well, wait, that's where they belong anyway, right behind the cart. A, the
That's the Democrat way of handling energy.
That's right. Put the horses behind the cart.
Horses
Push it
behind the
uphill.
cart.
The Here's the thing: in Pennsylvania, all they're doing is voting on a resolution that the election was unfair and to recall electors and rename them uh, under the legislative power under Article 1, Section 2, subsection 2, point 1 or whatever. I can't, all that those numbers jumble in my head. Everybody knows it by now, so we don't have to say that to be smart.
Yeah.
But under that clause in the Constitution, legislators get the power to choose how to elect a president. And so if they do this, that's fraught with danger as well. 20 electoral votes would be taken from Biden and given to Trump. Um, so that'll bring them down below 300, but it still won't get them below 270.
Mm-hmm.
And then you have another issue. Now you've got people, because you don't just have Pennsylvania Democrats pissed off. You have every squealer from the squibs, or what they call themselves, the squad.
Yep.
I call them the squibs. Yes,
Mm-hmm.
the squibs will go crazy, and the whole country will light up in riots from these people if we steal their 20 votes back because we only count legal votes.
Mm-hmm.
So you think about this because it's the right thing to do, A, but there's ramifications come after it, B. C, um, the resolution has no authority in law.
Yeah.
It's just the legislator saying, hey, we think this. Yay. They could have just wrote a newspaper article and said, we, the legislature. But it's their way of showing they have enough support and getting people on record about it.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of constitutional scholars out there that are arguing, what can they do next? Now they got the resolution. Okay, what's the next step?
Yeah.
Well, some believe they have to make it a law, and then have the governor pass it. Well, of course, that won't happen. That'd get a veto, and then they'd have to override it. And I don't know if they have enough to override a veto or not. But other constitutional experts say that they only have to make the resolution, which are done, and then sit there and vote on new electors. Nothing goes to the governor because the attorney general, the governor, the lieutenant governor, none of them are mentioned in the Constitution having a role in picking electors, nor the courts. I keep saying this, I keep stressing it. The courts do not have a role. The only people who have a role are our elected legislatures at the state level. And remember this, Ken. Who gave birth to the Constitution? It was the state legislatures.
State legislatures. Yep.
That's right. Each one had a treaty with King George. They were recognized as a state of government. So just like Germany and England, Rhode Hampshire, New Hampshire, rather Rhode Island, and
Rhode
New Hampshire. Just roll them together. What the hell?
Just the same
That's
thing.
it. Yeah, it'd save time. New York, Pennsylvania, all those guys were considered countries, and they still are. We're a united group of countries, the United Countries of America. Of course, that didn't sell well, so they called them states instead, because that was the term that was popular back then. But if you think about it in that way, it puts your brain into a different context when you look at why has the legislature got the power. The state legislatures gave birth to the Constitution, and they retained power for themselves on who to pick to lead the whole freaking country. And then they put the state legislatures as picking the senators for each state. So you can see they wanted a heavy hand in seeing who was going to be running the central government. Of course, we amended the Constitution, sadly, and allowed senators to be picked by we the people because we were sold a bag of goods.
Yeah.
And And so now just the president is under legislative authority for picking by the state legislature. So all they have to do is sit there and say, okay, we have 20 electors to elect, let's elect them. And if they elect the 20 that are out of the Trump camp, then those electors will go to the state capitol and vote. There may be an accelerated timeline on that because of how long time has gone now, and then sent to, of course, the vice president and the Senate to count the votes and certify the entire election. And the vice president's job is to do that. It's the last stop of making the election official. And so, we have that in our corner too right now. So yeah, it's doable if he does it. And we, the people, stand behind him. It's going to be expensive, believe me, because they'll fight every inch of the way. A, they want to keep their win, and B, they don't want to be exposed for fraud. But if the DIA is involved, then we may not only have Trump as our president for the next 4 years, but we may also see quite a few openings in Congress as Democrats go to jail.
Yes.
Where was it? That Georgia wannabe governor, what's her name? Nita?
Stacey Abrams.
Abrams, that's it. She's in trouble again. Another one of her finance deals has been caught as fraudulent. And it's all over the news. So they exist in fraud because they know the media won't report it, and they can get away with it.
Exactly.
and then you've got Biden. Even if he does win the election, won't be president long. They'll 21st Amendment his butt out of the office. He broke his ankle playing with his dog. And
his rescue dog of all.
Right, yeah. The emotional animal he has broke his ankle. What does that tell you? The dog voted Democrat, and Biden found out, and the dog took care of it. So, he's infirm. His bones are brittle. He's got an addled mind, and I say this out of actual respect to the man. He has served a long time in this country. I don't believe any man should serve as long as him, but he has, and his people keep reelecting him, so they like him, and what he does must have been sufficient to be reelected over and over and over. So you have to respect that. He's sent some sons to war, and my hat's off to that. It didn't end well. With a bad conduct. We call that in the military, we call it a BCD, or a big chicken dinner.
Big chicken.
And the big chicken dinner he's got. So, outside the military, you probably don't hear that a lot, but that's our in-house euphemism for it. But he got a BCD for cocaine or something like that. And it's sad. It ruined his reputation. But, it happens. People, make mistakes. We're human. But, he sent sons to war, and, only 1% of the country even stands up and puts a uniform on. And then, only a fraction of those 1% actually go to war. So, you got to give that to Biden.
Yeah.
And
I want to close out. I want to close out this question for you. Because I can ask you anything. AX.
Anything. Yes, I'm wearing boxers.
Yeah. Only briefly.
You want to see? Hold on. Here you go.
No, thank you. No, thank you. I never knew darkness until you stood up. Anyway.
Yeah. Blacker than black, baby.
But we have now Lieutenant General Flynn mentioning martial law. We have also the Trump campaign attorneys, or at least those who are working outside on behalf of Trump, Sidney Powell and Lynn Wood, and they are referring to this as war.
Mm-hmm.
And strangely...
Well, why not? Our founders... I'm sorry to interrupt your question, but I got to say this. Our founders had a revolution for a hell of a lot less. Where is the people out there with pillows, feathers, and tar? It's time to tar and feathering these people and get pitchforks and torches out and get on those streets and protest peacefully for a while. But, as we were talking with Jeff today,
Mm-hmm.
I think it was Kennedy who said, if you don't give a man a peaceful way to revolt, he'll revolt with action or violence or whatever. And that's where we're going to, Ken. We're going to violence. The left has already been in violent mode, hence the increase in plywood sales across this country.
Exactly.
But the right will do it too. And guess who has all the guns, you idiots? You know, there's a few gangbangers on your side, but the rest of us, just the registered hunters in 4 states in the Northeast have the largest army in the world. Can you think about that? Now
Wow.
think about the whole country, and that doesn't include Texas. Texas has probably one of the world's largest armies too of arms,
Mm-hmm.
and 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 people are gearing up. It is so bad. You can buy a weapon online, but you can't buy ammunition.
Yeah.
And the reason for that is people are just stockpiling. They're ready for it to come. And if we go to martial law, I laugh at this. Do you remember his 4th of July celebration? And he parked 2 tanks out in front of the grandstand.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and the left went nuts that it was Nazi get 'em, and that they were, this is fascist, and that we were, like the Russians rolling our military might down the streets, a whole 2 frickin' tanks. And they went berserk. Can you imagine if Trump declares martial law and the military goes along with them? Disregard those text messages, Ken. My cat is playing with the phone,
Oh, thank you.
and
Okay.
yeah, he's sending you naked pictures. But
I didn't like the
yeah,
last one. The first one, yes. The last one, no.
yes, that Anthony Weiner and my cat were buddies for a while. So anyway, my cat says that the Weiner pics are actually him, yeah, but they used that Photoshop thing, for Anthony. um, but can you imagine what would happen if you see? Here's the thing: Trump can declare martial law. Will the
Yes.
military back him? Will
Mm.
we put on our arms and our uniforms, our BDUs, and armor up and head out to defend this country's honor and dignity against traitors? Now, my oath, as everyone who goes in the military, says that I'm here to protect against foreign and domestic enemies. And believe me, when I say that they've been my opponents for the last 50 years politically, but now they're my enemy because I believe they committed fraud. I believe they stole the election. And to me, a constitutionalist, that is one of the most sacred things about this country. And the peaceful resolution, the peaceful passing on of governments from one to the next. And
Mm.
and John Adams was scary to people. Would Adams and Jefferson pass on the country to each other without warfare and bloodshed? And they did. So
Mm.
if Adams and Jefferson at that point in their relationship could do that, we can still today. But it's becoming more and more unlikely.
Exactly.
And so if the military backs them up, wait until the left sees that, and then tanks for real roll down the streets and troopers everywhere
Exactly.
to enforce the law of this country, not unconstitutional, but the law of this country, which is, of course, the Constitution. It's the supreme law.
If
Everybody in Congress uh, owes their fealty to it. They take bloody oaths to defend it. So the fact that they
I've
are
never done this
participating in
before.
its fraud.
I've never
Yes,
done
sir.
this before, but I've actually overshot the 10 o'clock hour, and normally in the
Oh
ten
my
o'clock
God.
hour. So
We're
can you
talking
stay?
during money time, dude.
No, no. Can you stay with
Oh,
me?
yeah.
Is what I'm asking.
Reaching
Because
the voicemail box of 8023110.
okay, thank
Oh, yeah.
you.
That's my cat.
That's your cat. There you go.
Is he
Don't
sending you
call.
prank calls too? Yeah.
Don't call.
Hey, look what I can lick.
Okay. I
I'm
got
talking
2
about
of
his
them.
claws.
I'm willing to
Yeah.
share. Listen.
Now, hold on. Go ahead.
We're getting Dave Milner on the line, but I need to take a
Oh,
quick
good.
break here And we will record that quick break and come back with Dave Milner because we're talking about some very serious issues that need to be broached by the American people in all seriousness before we move forward with the rest of December. Christmas may not be what you think it is in 2020. That's basically what I'm going to say. People always ask me at 10 o'clock, why do you stop and ask those two questions? It's because I think they are the most important questions that we have to ask in any given day. Number one, do you know where your children are? Number two, do your children know where you are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
I'm Paul Stanley of KISS. It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
I'm Councilman Eric Joya. It's 10 o'clock. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
It's 10 p.m. Do you know where your children are?
Help make a safer, stronger DC. Whether it's a missing person, an unsolved homicide, or keeping citizens safe, there are a number of cases that are still unsolved. Please take a moment to listen to this one.
On Wednesday, May 27, 2015, at approximately 9:40 p.m., 27-year-old D.C. resident Sharnice Milton was shot and killed in the 2700 block of Good Hope Road Southeast. The victim, a journalist for Capital Community News, was changing buses on her way home from covering a meeting. Police believe someone on a dirt bike fired at Ms. Milton, but that she was not the intended target. The Metropolitan Police Department currently offers a reward of up to $25,000 to anyone that provides information which leads to the arrest and conviction of the person or persons wanted for any homicide in the District of Columbia.
If you have information about this case, contact the Metropolitan Police Department, 202-727-9099, and an anonymous text number, 50411.
Police say this is the man responsible for kidnapping and sexually assaulting a 4-year-old girl 18 years ago. He was arrested recently for an unrelated crime, but his DNA matched the sample collected from the 2002 investigation. The child was taken from her Wyoming apartment, then left injured and alone in northern Kent County. 13 on your side's Elena Holland talked with police about how the investigation unfolded.
A community can feel a little safer tonight after police have made an arrest in a case gone cold since 2002. And a woman in her 20s may feel some closure after police believe they know who abducted and abused her when she was 4 years old. 18 years ago, a 4-year-old little girl was taken from her home in her sleep at what used to be the Amsterdam Gardens apartments in Wyoming.
Later, the child had shown up in northern Kent County in Algoma Township on the doorstep of a family there, and she had been assaulted and she was alone.
Now, 18 years later, some justice for a family waiting years for answers about the moment that changed their lives forever.
Satisfaction that justice is going to be served in this case.
Recently, 44-year-old Richard Samuel Adams was arrested for an unrelated crime. His DNA was added to a state database and matched with DNA from the case. Adams was arrested Thursday, charged with first-degree criminal sexual conduct and kidnapping. His bond was denied.
You know, it's innocence until proven guilty, but at this point, this is a major break in this case.
Kimberly Coster is Wyoming's police chief and worked the case in 2002 as a detective. For her, this arrest brings back a flood of memories and a sense of accomplishment for her and her colleagues.
I actually had one detective tell me, I think I can retire now. It's just, these are the cases that stick with you your entire career. This is really what police work is about.
Cases with crimes against children are always difficult, but this one, she says, was more than that.
You know, I'm a mom now, but back then I could only imagine. And to think of the brutality, the horrifying details of the crime that happened to her, it breaks my heart.
In 2002, the child victim had given the description of a red truck. Chief Coster could not confirm the existence of that truck now, as they're still investigating. She says they will be looking into Adam's life the last 18 years and the events surrounding the abduction. But for today, a feeling of satisfaction.
Knowing that all the work that we put into it back then will come today to help put that behind her as much as it can be.
In Wyoming, Elena Holland, 13 on your side.
This on, there you go. It's not often that you get a chance to sit with your two besties and talk about the issues of the world and have a great cognizance of intelligentsia to actually listen to with great reverence and respect. And I have that opportunity tonight. I'm talking tonight with Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor, who was on the show earlier with Dave Milner, the unpleasant blind guy. We have to work on how we actually get our guests, because we got the same guests for our show. But it's a smart reason why we do that. It's because I have two of the smartest men in America talking with me tonight about those particular issues regarding the Constitution, martial law, and as well our fraud elections. And we're hearing earlier from Dr. Jones that all the things that you're hearing on Newsmax and OANN and TECN TV are plausible. Not only plausible, possible. And not only possible, but morally important for us to righteously pursue. And I get the opportunity tonight to talk with Dave Milner, who is the host of the Unpleasant Blind Guy on shrmedia.com, and as well on Blog Talk Radio, English Defense League with Jeff Mitchell. Dave and I are so similar in our looks that it confuses Jeff Mitchell. And so I'm just thankful and just ablaze with great joy that I get a chance to talk with you all in the presence of Mary Brockman, my bouncer in chief. Muchas gracias, Mary. Love you dearly. Dave, what say you, sir, from what you've been hearing tonight?
I want to say first, Ken, to you and to everyone who's listening to this at the Unpleasant Blind Guy page at Spreaker.com. I hope you a joyous Christmas. This will be airing at midnight, December the 26th, and that means it's still Christmas in other parts of the country. So, guys, a Merry Christmas out there. If you're still having it, have a great one. And if it's just over, hey, that's okay. With 2020 being what it is, we can celebrate the birth of the King of Kings a little bit longer. And guys, you're going to get even more treats after this, because from the 27th through the 1st of 2021, you're going to get the English Defense League radio show Christmas special, which Jeff Mitchell and Ken and the Underground Professor and myself will be doing, all right, on the 20th of December. So it is going to be a very joyous time. So a Merry Christmas to you guys.
Feliz Navidad.
Amen to that. Now, yeah, Ken, what I heard from Bill Barr just blew my mind, honestly. The number of specific instances that I've heard about in multiple states, testimony that I've watched from multiple people in front of committees and with interviews with James O'Keefe and people like that, how Barr can come back and say that there's no evidence of widespread voter fraud is just beyond me. Now, what this indicates is hard to fathom. There are conservative show hosts, big bugs and whatnot, who say that no, he is not a part of the deep state or shadow government or whatever you want to call it. And there are others that have questions about that now. Honestly, Ken, at this point, I'm just kind of throwing up my hands in dismay at the guy as far as that goes, because all logic says that this election was stolen. As far as the martial law aspect of it goes, I really don't think that martial law is going to need to be declared unless the courts do correct the results of this election. I think that's a better term than overturn or whatever. I think correct the results of this election would be a better term.
But isn't it more sexy for us to actually, as we're looking upon all three parties here in this moment, isn't it more sexy to go with this military route of constitutional tribunals, bringing treason charges up against Biden and his rest of his constituents that belong to that large fraud organization? And I ask you first, Dave, and I'll ask the professor after you.
Well, it may be sexier, but I don't know that it is the thing to do. And now you notice, by the way, and this has been going on ever since the election, and actually before the election, that the left want President Trump and his family tried and convicted of something. They haven't really specified. And they want, of course, all of his supporters brought before some kind of jacked up commission or something of that nature. They're looking to take scalps, and the three of us may well be in front of some committee at some point. I've got a few answers and a few fingers for them. But, no, I think that this is a sexy option, but I would say only use that option if necessary, because we have to correct the situation, but let us not drift into being what the left have become. That's my answer.
Professor, how do we correct this so that we can all have peace for Christmas and be able to go to Big Mama's for dinner? How can we peacefully deal with this particular situation?
It looks less and less like we'll be able to, but there's still hope. You know, things could go right. The legislatures in these states could see the writing on the wall, see the facts being laid out before them, the so-called no evidence, and then recall their electors and rename them. If that fails, I don't know how we don't go down a violent path eventually. And if it's not now, it'll be next election when there's absolutely no way any Republican will ever win again that the Democrats will be in control of the election machines again. And so how do you beat that? They've already learned how to do it. That's the only reason Trump was president for 4 years. They didn't do fraud well enough in 2016. It caught them short, so they decided they were going to make sure that Biden, a candidate who barely campaigned, would win in a landslide more than Hillary Clinton would win, or Obama. When you think about that, this man has set a world record for voting. In fact, he is so good that in most places, no one voted for anybody but Biden.
Exactly.
But here's the thing I'm worried about. If we do, there's a part of me that thinks, good, let's have the revolution right now. We have the guns. We have, I think the support of the military for the most part, and especially if we can do it non-violently. I don't think that the military is itching to shoot anyone, but I think they are itching to be in the process of fixing this. After all, their commander-in-chief sends them into battle. And while Trump started no new fights with anyone in 4 years, the Democrats have shown that they're quite willing to take the military that they hate and send them out. And so if Biden gets in the office, then under fraud, and then he sends these people out to die, what does that tell you as a member in uniform? I'll let you draw your own conclusions. But I am afraid that if we do go down forcefully with this, use force, that we will optically look like a third world country, and we may very well become one way or the other. If we use force, then that may be the only way to ensure political transfer of power in the future by precedent. If we don't use force and we allow this election to lie, and I use that word intentionally, then we are going to be a third world country too, that way. So, we're in a no-win situation here now, no matter what happens. Even if we restore Trump to the throne, he is, damaged goods. He'll get very little done, and the country will be in crisis for 4 years. And the media will damn sure make, whatever. We'll make sure it happens.
And that goes to my question, and it's as pinpoint as a nail in a piece of wood, but it's also as universal as the planetary systems are.
With or without Pluto?
With or without. It is the concept of whether there is enough moral courage for even the American people to admit that this election was a fraud. So, Dave, I got to ask you, do we have the moral courage? And I've heard people who are state legislators, I've heard advocates, I've heard from both sides, yada, yada. But I got to ask you, sir, is there moral courage at this hour to fight for what is right in America?
Well, that's a heck of a question, because as you know, as everyone who observes media knows, for months now, the media has been setting up this very scenario, the scenario of a stolen election that we are all supposed to endorse. All right, that happened when Chris Wallace asked his question at the debates. That has happened numerous times before that, with people asking President Trump if he would abide by election results. And the impression given was that whatever the election results were, they would be absolutely valid, and that there would be no problems at all with the mail-in ballots, even though the problems began almost immediately.
Yeah.
And then there's Nancy Pelosi, who famously stated that Joe Biden would be inaugurated in January, regardless of what the count was. And now, of course, being a blind guy, I go a lot by what I hear in people's voices. And the level of confidence in that statement and in statements by other leftists, including media personalities, went beyond the kind of hopeful confidence that you project when you're trying to get your candidate elected. It went to a certainty. They knew. They somehow knew that the fix was in. Now, I'm not saying here that there was some kind of meeting or phone call or something of that nature where everybody was told, yeah, this is, we got this through voter fraud. I'm not saying that at all, but were winks and nods exchanged? I think that's very possible. And I also believe that with the fraud as broad and as deep as it has been, just through the evidence that we've seen exposed, this is something that has been in the works probably since the day after the 2016 election. And to speak for a moment about the voting machines that people are having so much trouble with. All right, I first heard of those being able to be remotely accessed in 2015. Right? That was 5 years ago that we knew there was an issue. Okay, so this is not and should not be new to anyone. So there has been a lot of gaslighting done. There has been a lot of brainwashing done. And a lot of people who would otherwise be considered good and moral individuals are now on the side of those doing the brainwashing because they've just been exposed and steeped in it for so long. There are many people in this country that do have the moral courage to go to the truth, but there are many, many more who do not. And it is going to take the hand of God on this, I believe, to come up with the proper correction.
Exactly. I want to ask you both here, because this is going to be a very extensive reply from both of you and a very succinct question from one of me. Number one, are we officially in a civil war which began in May with political insurrection in Portland and the revolt of the American people at the death of the gentleman from Minnesota? And number two, why does it feel, if we are in a civil war, that the left is already fighting it and the right hasn't even put on their boots yet? I want to start with you, Dave, if you would answer those two, and then I'll give the professor a chance to answer as well.
Well, again, as you know, because you helped me with it, and it will be broadcast on my page at Spreaker.com after the first of the year in my series, The Way Back, I said that there will be a time in the future when historians will draw a line and say this marks the end of the first American Republic. All right? And you can't have that without the beginning of a civil war. Now, civil wars can and often do start cold, just as the Civil War in the 1860s began. It actually began in the 1850s. They called it back then the fitful 50s. There were incidents of violence and things of that nature involving the entire slavery issue, everywhere from the countrysides of Missouri and Kansas and Arkansas to the House chamber. Okay, so has the Civil War begun? God help us. I think that the answer to that question has to be yes. Certainly it is there at an ideological stage. 2 Trump supporters were murdered by 2 Biden supporters during the election. All right. And of course, as you said, there have been riots in the streets and things of that nature. And you notice how those riots have calmed down now that it is being put out that Biden won the election. So has the Civil War begun? Yes, it has. I will, I'll state that. Now, give me your second question again, please.
Yeah, the second question is, why is it, if it is, that the right doesn't even sound as if they put their boots on yet?
Okay. Well, the left are usually the first, and we've seen this historically with them, to go to violence. Yeah. All right. The right are represented often by Christians, by people who want to use reason to win an argument, by people who want to heal rather than hurt. And we are, in a sense, stuck in our own moral mire, so to speak. Now, that doesn't mean that we will not defend ourselves, and that does not mean that this conflict will not become much warmer on both sides if things continue the way that they are. But for now, there are a lot of people on the right that don't want to see this. I certainly don't. Neither do you. Neither does the Prof. Yeah. We don't want to see it come to blows. All right. And I think that is a big reason why, even though we have the guns, we also have the hesitation to do harm to our fellow Americans.
Yeah. Professor, what say you on that particular subject matter?
Well, Dave took a lot of my thunder there. I was going to say that this Civil War began in 1858, and what happened is the Democrats lost the war, and since they couldn't use violence directly, they changed their methods, and that's been going on ever since. And they have reacted to that. You know, they had a whole history of Republican presidents that they hated, and they keep getting smarter and smarter. I will say this was a concerted effort directed by somebody like, what was old snakehead James Carville? Someone like him. But today, you know, because Carville's too old to be doing that stuff. But someone like Carville or Stephanopoulos is going to be in the Obama camp. And they're the ones who put this together. Whether Obama knew or not doesn't matter. Frankly, Obama doesn't even know if he's a senator or a president or what state he's in when he's campaigning. So, you know, he's addled. But we are in the Civil War I guess you could call it a Cold War, like Dave said. That works for me. But the positions haven't changed. And the reasons for having this haven't changed, other than states' rights. This isn't a states' rights issue, although, ironically, it has become one because the Republicans are arguing states' rights in Pennsylvania and Arizona and whatnot, that the states have these rights, you know, to elect electors and whatnot. The reason the Republicans don't have their boots on, as you say, is because we're too busy making a living paying taxes for all the ne'er-do-wells in the Democrat Party to sit around and watch Oprah. We don't have time to go fight. And you notice, I mentioned that we're, you know, the world's largest army. Gun owners in America are the world's largest army. We're bigger than China.
Exactly, which is why the Chinese wouldn't want to invade us.
Right. And as Khrushchev said, you can't go door to door in America. Yeah, so he'd get shot. So you have to take America by other means. Other means being like what's going on now. You know, the Soviets are still got their hand in this, whether there's Soviets around or not. You know, the Communist Party, the communists have their hand in the Democrat Party wholesale. And it didn't work in Russia, so now they're trying to make America a fascist regime, where, of course, they decide what's right and wrong and who gets what and how, which is all they want. They've always wanted that ability. And they draw people to that party of like mind. Now, normally you see things and you say, well, this isn't a conspiracy. This is because the same kind of people with the same kind of thinking are in the Democrat Party, and that's why things like this happen. But this time, you see a coordinated effort between all of those states, at least 6 of them, and the fraud was committed in exactly the same way, in exactly the same manner, and vote changes occurred at exactly the same time in all of these places. Trump lost votes in Arizona exactly at the time he lost them in Pennsylvania. So that can't be done because a few bad actors in each county thought they would do something to help their candidate, as we're being told. This has to be a conspiracy of the widest extreme for the takeover of our government through subterfuge. And I stand by that. I hope one day to be proven wrong, but I doubt it. It's and then again, if we use violence, what are we going to do? What's the next trick?
There was a court in America that was responsible for the triggering of the Civil War in the United States. It had 7 Democrats on it and 2 Republicans, and 2 Republicans dissented in Plessy versus Ferguson.
Mm-hmm.
And a few years later, after Plessy versus Ferguson, the first shots were fired in Sumter, which started the Civil War. Right now, and final question to you all, and I know that this is Christmas and many people don't want to hear this conversation at Christmas time. We should be passing out gifts to one another with our mask on and our gloves on through that little rubber ball that we're all walking in, so that we don't get a virus which 99.9% of people actually survive. But we've come to a point now where this court, especially with the de facto Chief Justice being Clarence Thomas, who was rattled over the coals by Joseph Biden when he was in the Senate, and later on becomes one of the most conservative, strict constructionists in American judicial history on the Supreme Court, even far strict than Antonin Scalia. Now he may have to assemble the 4 other conservatives on the dais. I know the term overturn is not liked, but you have the disenfranchisement of those who voted legally by those who voted illegally, and you can't take out the water from the soup now. It's all illegal, virtually. It's a fraud election. And Clarence Thomas is going to have to make a decision along with the other 4. Alito is already leaning, and you can hear him where he's leaning towards. Will the 5 of them, Coney, Kavanaugh, Gorsuch, Alito, Thomas, go down in history as the men and women that triggered the second Civil War in the United States of America? I'll begin with Dave in this segment, and then I'll finish with the professor.
All right. Well, I just wanted to, before I get into this very serious subject, say that I do have breaking news here. This is a brief that has been filed in the World Court by the people of the moon against China. They claim now that they have the Wuhan, and they are seeking recompense for such. All right, and they state that such recompense will not be cheap products for Moon Mart. Okay, so that might be a market for us if President Trump does indeed remain president. Now, just to the more serious subject, Ken, I'm sorry to say that they probably will not, and for one reason. Well, a primary and a secondary reason. Their primary reason will be, I believe, because they do not want to see the social unrest and the triggering of a second hot civil war in this country. They do actually care about the people of the United States of America to that extent, even though doing so, even though refusing to rule the correct way, will essentially end the republic. And the secondary one is that they are frankly worried about the mob. They would have to they would actually have to be probably flown to a U.S. military base in order to be protected from the mob if they made the correct ruling. Now, that I know a lot of people don't want to hear that. Certainly, I would want to see them make the correct ruling, because the republic must stand regardless. This is believe it or not, guys, this is a temporary issue. And the validity of our election system must be the first and only concern. Okay? But I'm just saying what I believe will happen. And I believe that something else will happen. And that is that, I think you're really beginning to notice this now, kid, on December the 3rd, and Prof, as this show is being podcast on December the 26th now, okay, there is going to be a resurgence of faith and more people moving to He who is the King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, more powerful than any mayor, more powerful than any governor, more powerful than any president, pretend or not, president-elect or not, and that is Jesus Christ. We must put our faith in Him, and He will lead us to the place promised if we do that.
Yeah.
I love both you guys.
Love you too, Dave. You, sir, have the final word on this tonight. Professor Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor.
How much time I got?
As much time as you wish. I own the network.
Ah. Oh, you're the owner. Okay, Massa.
When you saw me mopping the floors downstairs, it wasn't because I was the janitor, okay?
That was because of Big Mama. Yeah. Go mop up that beer you don't drink.
For those of you who are concerned, I'll be going to my own AA meeting tomorrow morning. There you go.
Around Anonymous?
Very around.
Very around. Yes. All right, your rotundness. Here I am. My sister believes that what we've got coming is the end times, and that this is going to usher it, and that we will explode into violence, and that the end times are just going to follow. To put it in simple terms, we've talked about it quite a lot, but now, other than the fact that every generation thought this is the end times, since the apostles with Jesus, who began that theory, the rest of us have been thinking that with every generation. But discounting that, my sister's got some really good points on that. Dave is right. It's a temporary situation. It has a solution, a constitutional one even. But it won't be temporary if the elections aren't fixed. If they continue with these machines and software and they're able to take any election they want and never fear it again, then it's not temporary. And soon there'll be no Republicans in office, and as they eliminate them, at least enough that they can keep the balance of power easily and filibuster if they want, and tie things up if they don't, and they'll keep control of the White House, because no Republican will ever be elected again under this system. And it doesn't matter if Trump runs in 2024, and then this time 90 million of us show up to elect him. Well, Kamala Harris will win by 10 million votes.
Yeah.
that makes this a permanent problem if we don't get that fixed. The problem here is fixing the legal voting system and finding out a way to do better at eliminating illegal votes. And the Democrats will be in control of these machines and will have absolutely no interest in doing that. I mean, why should they?
But Professor, even by that explanation, Professor, it sounds, and I've heard Republicans talk this way, it sounds as if Republicans are planning on fixing the election fraud of 2020 in 2022, while the leftist Democrat Marxists are planning to celebrate their fraud in 2020 by entering into the White House in 2021. And there is a complete and total disenfranchisement of congressional races and state races and city races and county races around the country because we don't know the separation of legal and illegal because it's all been smushed together, which is what a recount will only show you. Quite frankly, there doesn't appear to be but one correct answer from Scotus, is that this is morally reprehensible. This election has to be thrown out, and the President of the United States will remain in office until there is such a remedy. What say you to that, sir?
I say that's the only choice. It's not to throw it back or say these 6 counties or 6 states or whatever need to revote. I say we throw out the entire election from the top, president down to dog catcher, and we certify new machines that have no way of talking to the internet, no way of talking to, to Germany or any place, and have nothing to do with George Soros or the Clintons or the Obamas. We need new machines, new software that the people can trust, and then we need a rigorous poll watching. In fact, they should institute where they're all tested for COVID and then allowed to sit next to the counter and watch, one on either side. There should be 3 chairs at every table, Democrat on the left, Republican on the right, and a counter in the middle. And the counter should have to wear a hat, whether blue or red, showing what his party allegiance is. And then, we know what to look for. And every counter should have a camera over him, overhead camera, watching what he's looking at and what he's doing. If he's whiting out, if he's marking on the ballots, if he's making new ballots, all that stuff will be seen. And it has to be done like that, or neither side will trust it. And if the Republicans think they'll fix this in 2022, they're believing in fairy tales. They're not rooted in reality. Because all that will happen is the Democrats will have 2 more years to dig in and fix it even better and find other ways to defraud us. So, it's like catch me if you can, the Democrat Party is. And every time we catch them, they just change what they do because that's who they are.
Basically, we come to the point in America where Plessy versus Ferguson, you have Scotus, and that they were put there for this particular purpose. Clarence Thomas, with the Coke can, and all the assertions made towards him, was raised for this particular moment. And so was Alito, and so was Gorsuch, and so was Kavanaugh, and so was Coney. They were raised for this moment. I'm not counting on Roberts, I'm not counting on Kagan, and I'm certainly not counting on Breyer. I'm not counting on any one of those in this particular pack. And I forgot one, and I will probably be criticized because it's the Latino female on the court. But you know who I'm talking about.
Ruth Bader Ginsburg.
Yeah, still alive. I'm showing up for work in hell. I'm still here. Still here.
Until the election's over.
But literally, we are in a place right now where if Clarence Thomas and the 4 others don't say yay to the Constitution, we literally throw the Constitution out the window in December 2020. And final word.
Add to that, Ken. Ken, you got to add to that that if some of the Democrat justices do not sign on to this, we'll have the same problem.
Yeah.
Because all they'll say is it was political. It was just Republican versus Democrat, and the Republicans are sore losers and wanted to win. So they stole the election for the Republican Party. That's all that will be done, and then nothing will be gained. And it will be very hard to fix fraudulent elections in the future if that's the case. So what we need is at least a 7 vote majority, and it would be nice to have all 9 get in there. Otherwise, you get bad law, like the things that we've been talking about. You get bad law, like what's the name of that law? It's the worst one the Supreme Court ever did.
The Affordable
Well,
Care
that's
Act.
another one. Yes,
bad law.
And guess who did that one? Roberts.
Chief Roberts. There you go. And if going back to bad law, you can go back to the Social Security Act and so many other things, just bad law in which we asked government to do something for us that we needed to do for ourselves. Listen, I want to thank you, Professor, for being on with me tonight on this short notice. It's a serious topic. I don't think I haven't heard anyone besides, on the conservative side, you have the rah-rah for Trump. And don't get it wrong, I love Donald Trump. I think he's a great president. But you haven't heard anyone on the right side talk about this in this particular magnitude, thinking out the strategies going forward. But you also haven't heard the left say anything, even that there's voter suppression. It doesn't exist. This was the perfect vote, and Joe Biden won with 81 million votes. Simply
that alone tells me that something's fishy, because they were all screaming it before about the mail-in ballots and about voter suppression and fraud, and then all of a sudden it became like the pristine election of 2020.
Ladies and gentlemen, I've had the great pleasure tonight of talking with not only Dave Milner, the Unpleasant Blind Guy fame, and also English Defense League, that you can hear on this Sunday at 3:30 p.m. on Blog Talk Radio. And we want to thank those people who tuned in on Christmas Day to hear his wonderful presentation tonight. But I also had the great pleasure of speaking with another best friend of mine, Dr. Michael Jones, the underground professor who will be joining the network in the next couple of weeks, and we'll be working that all out for him. And we just thank you, sir, because it's your wisdom, in all sincerity, not blowing any wind up your skirt. And it's a beautiful skirt that you're wearing. Trust me, I've seen it.
Thank you. It goes with my shoes.
But you're a brilliant man, and America needs you for such a time as this. Thank God for you both. Love you, man.
Well, I don't know about all that, but thank you.
We'll be talking very soon. Ladies and gentlemen, not only Dave Milner, but also the professor, Dr. Michael Jones. I know that I've never done this before, in which I've gone such an extended period of time without seeking profit, playing commercials. But I wanted to let you all know that I'm really concerned about America, about the Republic, about you, and about me. We read in the history books of the Battle of Sumter and how it started the Civil War. And we have always thought of them as the blue and the gray. And we never thought of them as our brothers and our sisters. And I want you to know, when you were at that Thanksgiving table with your family, so once were those members of a family that sat around a table, many of which in white communities didn't own a single slave. And they decided that the state that they lived in needed them to protect the well-being of the people and the heritage to come. They broke bread together, and then the following months were deadly at war with one another. This is why I am concerned, being a father of someone who lost a daughter to violence and hatred on the streets. And she was an innocent bystander. The original American Revolution, only 1/3 of the Americans fought for liberty and freedom. They were called patriots. 1/3 were called loyalists because they were fighting with the British against the American patriots. And then there was 1/3 of Americans who were just innocent bystanders, didn't want to do with anything, didn't want to be involved in politics. I don't want to, tax stamp, whatever, Stamp Act, whatever, Boston Tea, I don't want to get involved. But their children were involved because they were called into war. Tonight, in all honesty, I want you to seriously look at your children and kiss them on the forehead before they go to bed. Give them the greatest hug you ever possibly could. Show them the greatest amount of love and appreciation for the gift that God gave you. Because the unfortunate thing is, neither of us knows what tomorrow may bring. But in the case of politics, where there are masters who seek domination of men through their ideological bent, many of your children are as valuable as the vote that was begot fraudulently. Your children have as much value as the aborted baby. Your children have as much value as the old person who's put down in the home. You see, they're just another being, another thing. The only person that matters is themselves. America, we have reached that point that I've been writing about a long time. And I pray that I'm wrong. I really do. I sincerely pray that I'm wrong. But we reach that point where there's only one right answer. And if the answer is not given rightly, we shall devolve into the same skirmishes that eventually led to the Civil War. May God bless you, and may God bless this great republic. If you don't remember anything else I said tonight, God has already blessed America. It's time for America to bless God. Good night. Tomorrow night, 9 p.m., we will be talking with none other than Hampton Conway III about men being abused in the civil courts. Good night, and God bless you, one and all.